Mate 40 here. So Hillary Clinton was asked why did she attend Donald Trump's wedding to Melania, so wedding number 3 for the Donald, and she said because he's so much fun. So when you're looking at Trump on day 1, day 2, day 3, and you're wondering where does he get the energy, the 78-year-old guy? Great question. And if you ask people what's it like spending time with Donald Trump, right, people universally say it's a lot of fun. And so why do people get energized hanging out with Donald Trump? Because he has a gift at getting on the same page with people. Like he has a gift of recognizing where people are coming from. So he actually does have a fair degree of empathy. So when he's around people who like to talk sports, he talks sports. When he's around people who like to talk sex, I'm sure he talks sex. When he's around people who want to talk show business or making money, or he's able to tap into whatever someone's interested in and then build a foundation, get on the same page, build a foundation, connect. And then when you get on the same page with people and you develop a rhythm so that the conversation is flowing easily, right? Have you ever had a friend and then there was a falling out or some setback to your friendship, and then you got together, and whereas friendship, it always flowed easily, the conversation always flowed easily, now it was halting and you were stepping on each other's words, or there'd be long pauses. So when people are friends and they're getting on well, the pause between the end of one person speaking and the next person speaking is less than a second. So it just happens naturally. You go back and forth. And so Trump is energized because he's getting on the same page with people and building up a rhythm with people, shared connections, shared values, shared allegiances, like shared sense of excitement. And that's why people attend theater. It's a collective experience that produces emotional effervescence or emotional energy, because when you get on the same page with people, like everyone in the room is on the same page, so powerful prayer service, or you have a powerful charismatic teacher and people are enthralled by what he has to say, or you go to a sporting event and 50,000 people react as one, there is release of energy that's simply not available on your own. There's a joy and a thrill in attending something collectively as a group that will unleash and unlock energy that's simply not there when you do things on your own. Like the great live streams are when people get on the same page and they lock in and then they build on what they have in common. And Donald Trump is great at reading an audience, and he notices when they're tuning out. And if you ever do some public speaking and you notice your audience is tuning out, well, you lost them 5-10 minutes before. And once you lose an audience, it's hard to get them back. So one reason for Donald Trump's Build the Wall campaign in 2015, 2016, is he noticed that released the most energy from his audience. That's what got people the most excited. And so Trump was signing executive orders in front of a large rally crowd on day 1, on Monday. Right? Never been done before. And people were excited about what Trump was doing, and he was doing it in public. So he was energized, they were energized, they were building energy together. So MAGA, Make America Great Again, and MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. These are collective movements, and there are all sorts of experiences and emotions and intensity and a thrill in living, a sense that you're important because you're part of something larger than yourself, that is only available when you're connecting with other people, having that group experience. And Donald Trump, like all the great achievers, right, builds that base of connection with an audience, right? With people from his assistants to his butlers to his security to his political advisors, to his political team, to his business team, to his family, right? He builds that base of support, and then they get a rhythm, and then off they go. And the energy release just keeps going higher and higher. Donald Trump seems to have a pretty good family, and Donald Trump is deserving of all sorts of criticism, but that he has such a pretty cool family speaks very well of him. And it's quite a contrast with Joe Biden. So, in Joe Biden's favor, he's got a long, loyal team behind him that worked with him for many years. So that's why they were so cohesive in the White House. That's why they were so effective in covering up for his mental decline. But when Joe Biden was thinking of running for president in 2015, I'm pretty sure he would have beaten Trump in 2016. Right, only a visibly reduced Joe Biden would lose to Donald Trump. So Hillary Clinton was not a good campaigner because she doesn't easily get on the same page with people. She takes things very personally. She holds a grudge. And Trump is talked about as always holding grudges and wanting to get even. But he has the ability to overcome that when he sees it's in his own best interests and establish a rapport with people who are previously enemies and then build something great together. So when Joe Biden was considering running in 2015, 2016, he was told that your family is fair game, like everything is fair game, right? So Democratic activists let him know that your family is going to come under great scrutiny for all the corruption that appears to be there. And so that was something that Dan Turrentine raised on Mark Halperin's show this morning. Dan Turrentine, longtime Democratic Party activist, strategist, lobbyist, fundraiser, chief of staff to Jared Polis, the gay Democratic governor of Colorado. Right, Dan Turrentine shared that news that Joe Biden was told, hey, your family's going to come under scrutiny if you decide to run for president 2015, 2016, and it's all going to be fair game. So the Mark Halperin crew was asked this morning. I'm sorry? It's on the other side, so just, yeah, you can either way, either go that way and then right on Robertson, or go that way and go left. It's right over there. So a woman was asking Mark Halperin, are there any great investigative journalists? Do we have any great investigative journalists left who are going to investigate the Biden crime family? So Joe Biden gave oddly specific dates of pardon for his family members. Back to a specific date, I think in 2014. So what was it they've been participating in since 2014? Because Biden and Biden's family have gotten rich from his political office, and it appears corrupt. And Peter Schweitzer probably done the best investigative work on Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation. Right, he published a book in 2020 called Profiles in Corruption. Anyway, this woman was asking, are there any great investigative reporters left like Woodward and Bernstein? Well, Woodward and Bernstein were so successful and influential because they rode on the coattails of FBI and other government investigations of the Nixon administration. So what the great investigative reporters don't usually tell you is that their biggest stories are usually given to them. My biggest stories have been given to me. So I was being interviewed by Tony Castro, a columnist of the Los Angeles Daily News, in early 2007. He was writing a profile of me. And as we were warming up for the interview, he remarked, it's curious that LA's mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa, has not been wearing his wedding ring for the past 8 months. And Tony Villaraigosa is something of a ladies' man, right? He's He'd left his wife previously, so he wasn't known for solid relationships. And it was just curious that the news media wasn't covering this story. So I immediately fired off emails to several political reporters and other journalists I knew in LA about this story. And I very quickly knew I had a story. And while I was in the process of being interviewed by Tony Castro, right, I'd gotten enough confirmation back from other sources that I ran with the story on my blog. It became the largest story in California in 2007 because the mayor of Los Angeles is not only leaving his wife, he'd been carrying on an ongoing affair with a Spanish language TV newsreader in Los Angeles. And it effectively marked the end of Tony Villaraigosa's political career, and he was talked about as a future president of the United States. Right? It was expected that his career would continue to ascend. This story marked the end of his career. It was a big story, and it was given to me, essentially. I just had to check it out and confirm it. So too with the big scoop I had about Mark Wallace being likely patient zero in an HIV outbreak in the porn industry in the years 1995 to 1998. Where up to a dozen or so actresses, after doing unprotected backdoor activity with Mr. Mark Wallace Goldberg, had come down with HIV infection. And I was tipped off to that story. So someone had started emailing people around the industry that it was Mark Wallace during this hunt for patient zero because he hadn't come in to get a proper HIV test. And about the same day that was emailed around the industry, somebody tipped me off to that story. So the way that Woodward and Bernstein became famous is that they had friends and connections in the deep state, in the FBI. Mark Felt, in particular, who was the number 2 man at the FBI, who was deep throat in the Woodward and Bernstein books. Right, number 2 guy in the FBI, steering you about the direction of the FBI's investigation of the president and his administration, leading to the Watergate scandal. It's a pretty good source. So the biggest revelations that Woodward and Bernstein received and that most investigative reporters receive are given to them. And then instead the weasel word language that investigative reporters will use is obtained. ABC News obtained. What they're saying is it was given to them. So will there be revelatory investigative journalism on the Biden crime family? Well, if Republicans investigate the Biden crime family and then staffers from those investigations hand off scoops to journalists, then you'll see possibly, oh, what amazing investigative journalist work done. So it wasn't the news media that brought down Richard Nixon, right? It was government agencies such as the FBI. The news media reported, handed out, transmitted the scraps of information that were given to them by their contacts in the FBI and other government investigative agencies. So it was not 2 journalists who brought down a president, as the movie All the President's Men would have you believe. There's 2 journalists who had sources in the deep state, and those sources wanted to be rid of Richard Nixon and bring him down. It's very hard to get anything done when the elite are 95% against you. In the case of Richard Nixon, the elite were 95% against him, and so they brought him down. In Trump's first term, the elite were about 80 to 90% against him, and so he wasn't able to get much done. This time, Donald Trump seems to be able to tap into at least tacit support from a large part of America's elite. So if Republicans drive investigations on the Biden crime family, then we'll see that amazing investigative journalism work. So another first mover advantage is important here, right? You break an initial story, then other people will come to regard you as important, and they'll be more likely to give you scoops. So to the extent that I've been successful as someone breaking stories online, is because I gained a reputation for doing that. And I talked to a lot of people, and I managed to maintain good relations with a lot of people so that they were disposed towards giving me information. And so I'd usually blog with the mindset that I want my work to be in the public interest, because if what I'm doing is seen in the public interest, then people are more likely to be favorably disposed and to assist me in my investigation, because one person can never know as much as 10,000 people who are interested in the topic. And so if you position yourself as pursuing the truth and striving to act in the public interest, you're most likely to get assistance. So there were times when people would diss me and I'd be very tempted to disrespect them back. And perhaps sometimes I did. But often, I remember one time I was uttering some disrespecting sentiments about one woman, and a friend said, "Hey, she's about to be the source for some major scoops for you, so don't blow that up." And so I learned very quickly in my blogging muckraking days, you want to maintain the best possible relations with other people as possible. Let them win all these minor matters of ego, because you never know where your scoops are going to come from, because someone who hates you one day will the next day realize they hate someone else more and give you important information. Are we in the golden era? Mr. Ford has got a good radio voice, thank you. Some people claim that Mark Wallace was one of the industry's most talented directors. I don't know about that. I had this full 3-hour show that I was itching to give you yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately I didn't stack my nootropics right. I keep repeatedly making the mistake with this energy enhancing Chinese supplement. But if I take it in the morning in conjunction with my ADHD meds, I feel sick. And then I took 2 of these Qi energy capsules yesterday. Oh, I was so ill. I felt awful. And I've repeatedly made this mistake the last few weeks. If I take it at night, right, I'm fine. I need a 12-hour break between taking the ADHD medication and then taking this supplement. But supplements are largely unregulated in the United States, and you got to be really careful. If you feel sick, but you don't have a cold and you don't have a flu, like I've been driven to bed for like 2 days at a time, and I just realized now it's this stupid Qi supplement that I've been taking in conjunction with my ADHD meds. So if you ever get sick and it's for no discernible reason, think about any supplements you're taking that could be clashing with other supplements or clashing with prescribed medication. Oof. I was on Nardil for years, and there are just certain foods that you just could not take with Nardil that you really had to watch out for. You can have very negative reactions. So you can't rely on the United States government to regulate supplements. You have to be quite clued into cause and effect. So remember, there were a few weeks there last year where I just wasn't feeling my normal sense of joy and energy and vitality, and it disturbed me till I recognized the reason. Oh yeah, that's the reason, right? There was one part of my life that wasn't lined up and firing and working, and until I get that part of my life aligned, right, I'm not going to have the same strength, energy, vitality, enthusiasm, exuberance. I'm not going to have that foundation on which to launch myself into a live stream or launch myself into life. So when I'm struggling, I tend to be introverted, and I'm not much inclined to share my opinions on a live stream. I share my opinions on a live stream when the rest of my life is going well, usually, right? When enough of the rest of my life is working, that I have my financial foundation covered, I have my Jewish religious community foundation covered, I've got good foundation with my family, with my important friends, right? Then I have that energy to have the chutzpah to imagine that I have some insights to share with the world, and then that can launch me into doing live streams. But there were years where I felt like I was struggling with over $50,000 in credit card debt, and I hardly ever went live. So I first started going live on cam streams, then US streams in 2008. I'd do my Torah Talk show and I'd just go live and get 10, 20 live viewers, just like today. I was doing that quite regularly in 2008. And then as my credit card debt built up, as I was going to Alexander Technique Training School, and the tuition was about $25,000. So not exorbitant, but I didn't have much money coming in. So my credit card debt climbed over $50,000 between 2010 and 2015. And so I didn't go live for approximately 4 or 5 years between 2010 and 2015. And then I was only meeting The Truth Will Live, Jessica, having a lot of good chats with her online, that we finally decided to do a live show. First show was with her sister, talking about the weekly Torah portion and right-wing politics. And so it was meeting her, connecting with her, bonding with her, creating a foundation with her of common interests. We were both Jews interested in the alt-right. And so from that foundation, then that launched me into live streaming. I took about 4 to 5 years off because I did not feel confident. I felt highly insecure due to my piles of credit card debt and just overall sense of struggling in life and life not turning out the way I had hoped. And so as long as I was struggling, I just didn't want to go live. To go live, I have to have an inordinate amount of self-confidence and to have the sense that my foundations are covered. And then I can contribute to the world. So I mainly wanted to talk about January 6th yesterday, because on Mark Halperin's show Tuesday morning, he and Sean Spicer got into it. Like, Mark Halperin wanted to just do a light touch on January 6th, making the point that there are two sides to the story and that each side should have some empathy for how the other side sees things so that we can move forward together as a nation. And Sean Spicer, I believe, is of Irish descent, and he has that notorious Irish temper. And he just wanted to celebrate Donald Trump's first day in office, Donald Trump's inauguration. So he was ticked off that Mark Halperin began the show talking about January 6th. And so there was quite a bit of tension between Halperin and Spicer for the first 12 minutes of yesterday's show. And I do not agree with Donald Trump's mass pardons. So if what you committed was misdemeanor trespassing, then I have no problem with a pardon or a commutation. But Donald Trump's pardons include people who are fighting with the police and who are organizing the riot, the Capitol Hill riot on January 6th. So people who are engaged in much more serious behavior than just misdemeanor trespassing. So if Trump had been more selective in his pardons for the January 6th protesters, I think that would get more public support. All right, the public does not like these mass pardons that Trump has issued the January 6th protesters. All right, according to polls, it's about 2-1 against. So if you simply had selective pardons, some little old lady who just trespassed, yeah, people would understand it. But if you're pardoning people who organized the Capitol Hill riot and were fighting with police, then that's not going to get public support. So most of what Donald Trump is doing has public support. And the reason that Donald Trump has been a successful political enemy is that he's able to discern where the public is at. And so Donald Trump won the election because he was able to seize the political center. And he positioned himself to give the public what it wants. And that will enable him to be a successful president if he sticks with that strategy. So most of Donald Trump's executive orders, most of the actions that he's taken during his first 3 days in office are broadly popular, even though the mainstream media doesn't portray them that way. But his January 6th pardons and his discrediting of the 2020 election results is not broadly popular. So I want to talk about this. So there was someone who came on Halperin's show yesterday morning, said that he was conservative and that he supports 90% of what Donald Trump does, but he couldn't vote for Donald Trump because of January 6th and Donald Trump's other violation of norms for a presidential candidate. And I was just thinking, that's crazy, right? Here you've got a president who gives you 90% of what you want, and you can't support that because of January 6th or some other violation of norms. I support, I would guess, 80% of what Donald Trump does. And I'd never allow a minority of what he says and does to disqualify him from thinking that overall he's the best choice among two choices, right? It was either him or Kamala Harris in 2024 election. Joe Biden clearly was not fit for office from day one. So Donald Trump would have been a better choice in 2020, and Donald Trump was clearly a better choice over Hillary Clinton in 2016. So why would Trump's violation of norms, and let's just focus on January 6th, disqualify him in the eyes of those who would otherwise support him? And I think it goes to the question of what is the United States of America? Is the United States of America primarily a set of laws, protocols, procedures, documents, and institutions? And that's how many people in our educated intellectual class think, right? The United States is a nation of laws. Yes, it is a nation of laws, but is it primarily a nation of laws? If you believe the United States is primarily a nation of laws, protocols, procedures, institutions, and documents such as the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, the constitutional amendments, then you'll be outraged by January 6th because it was a direct assault on our procedures and laws for federal government elections. But I don't see the United States of America as primarily a nation of laws, right? I see the United States of America as primarily a nation, as primarily people. And the laws and documents and procedures and protocols that the people develop is important to me, but it's not as important to me as the well-being of the people. To me, the health of the people, the safety of the people, the security of the people, the wealth of the people, the power of the people, the quality of life of the people. These are the most important considerations. So yes, January 6th, bad. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad? So if 9/11 was a 10 out of 10 in severity, 10 out of 10 in importance, then I'd place January 6th as a 2. And I would say that Joe Biden's reckless foreign policy is somewhere between a 7 and to a 10. We've unnecessarily involved ourselves in the Ukraine war and Israel's wars. And perhaps unnecessarily antagonized China. So, to me, the Biden administration's foreign policy has been the most disastrous foreign policy of any American president that I can think of in 100 years. And so, to me, that's a 10 out of 10 in importance and far more deadly, devastating, damaging to the United States of America than the violation of norms, protocols, procedures, and laws by the Capitol Hill riot. It was never an insurrection. They never had any concrete plan for taking over power in the U.S. federal government. It was a riot that got out of control. So we are apparently doomed to horrible relations with Russia for many years to come. Right? John Mearsheimer regards our support of Ukraine as 10 times worse than the disastrous 2003 invasion of Iraq. So to me, Biden administration's policy with regard to Ukraine, far more serious, far more damaging to the United States of America, to the people, to the nation, to its survival and prosperity than January 6th. So what were the reasons that Osama bin Laden committed the terror attacks on the United States on 9/11? So one reason was the US support for Israel. Another reason was the stationing of troops in Saudi Arabia. And there was one other major reason. But that's just worth considering, right? We don't need to be needlessly creating incentives for terror attacks or conflicts or unnecessary wars, let alone a nuclear conflagration with Russia. So, to me, that's far more damaging than January 6th. Then the Biden administration's domestic economic policy that fueled inflation is more damaging than January 6th. Pushing diversity, equity, inclusion, affirmative action is more destructive of social cohesion, social trust than January 6th. So, widespread immigration to the United States, both legal and illegal, right, reduces social cohesion, social trust. Right, that's more damaging to Americans than January 6th. Or when you have judges that overrule the will of the people for spurious constitutional grounds, such as with imposing gay marriage by judicial fiat in 2011, the Oberfell ruling. Was that in 2013? Whatever, the Oberfell ruling that made same-sex marriage the law of the land, right? Often against the express will of the people. That damages national cohesion and trust between citizens. The Roe v. Wade decision that took abortion as a matter of law out of the hands of the people and just allowed judges to impose it as the law of the land, that damages trust and cohesion. In 1996, Californians voted for Proposition 187 to deny some welfare benefits to people in the country illegally, and the California Supreme Court struck that down on spurious constitutional grounds. Right, so when people of the United States make their opinion heard through referenda, through election of politicians who pass widely popular legislation, and then you invent some constitutional reason for why the people don't get to have the laws that they chose, right, that is incredibly damaging of social trust and social cohesion, much more so than January 6th. So we're not just because something is passed in a legal fashion, such as the Supreme Court makes a ruling that is broadly unpopular, right, that doesn't increase the strength and cohesiveness and excellence of the United States of America. So much of the loathing of what happened on January 6th, so people who seem to venerate procedure above all. But procedure isn't always the most important quality, right? Just as in Jewish law, right? Is observing Jewish law the end in and of itself, or is there an extra halakhic? Is there a transcendent purpose behind Jewish law that observance of Jewish law should be leading to? So you can be disgusting with the permission of the Torah, said Nachmanides. And so you can observe Jewish law in a way that's disgusting, or you can observe Jewish law in a way that creates a more righteous, holy, and uplifting life, and that it's not just good for you, but it's good for the people around you. Or you can observe it in a way that is both self-destructive and socially destructive. Right, that's the concept of the extra halakhic, transcendent purpose of Jewish law. And so I don't fetishize laws, protocols, procedures. just because something was done according to proper procedure is not the only question of significance to me. To me, the United States Constitution is not a death warrant. Protocols, procedures, laws, institutions are not death warrants. The most important thing is the health, safety, well-being, power, and quality of life for the particular people, Americans, the United States of America. What do I make of Fauci being pre-pardoned? I think these pre-pardons are terrible, right? This has never been done before, except in the case of Richard Nixon, who was clearly going to receive a whole raft of prosecutions. So I think the Biden pardons were an absolute disaster. Which supplements give me the most brat energy? I'm not sure. You've got modafinil, right? Yeah, modafinil helps with ADHD, but you don't want to take this Chinese medication within 12 hours of taking modafinil. Honestly, the worst pardon was the Silk Road guy. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Oh man. So I had all these thoughts written down, ready to go for a big 3-hour show, and I was just lying on the floor, just shivering and moaning and rocking back and forth yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. Just absolutely brought to my knees, unable to do anything productive. Damn. But I threw out those damn chi capsules because I didn't have the discipline, the discretion, the care and consideration to only take them 12 hours of modafinil. So I just threw out the remaining, 4 capsules left. The bottle was probably 10 years old too. Don't recommend that. So Halperin said something smart a couple of days ago on his show. And he got a question, what do you make of Joe Scarborough of Morning Joe, MSNBC show fame, saying that after meeting with Joe Biden in early 2024, this is the best Biden ever, he's sharp as a tack. Halperin made a nuanced and superb answer. He said, Joe Biden had good days and bad days, right? Joe Biden gave a sharp State of the Union address in late January of 2024. So even though Joe Biden was not fit for office on day one, he still had good days and bad days. And it's entirely possible that Joe Scarborough was with Joe Biden on a good day, and he was sharp as a tack. So I thought that was an important qualifier, that if you have someone in your life who's descending into senility, they're going to have good days and bad days, right? They're going to have days where you think, they're fine, they're just fine. And then they're going to have other days where they're not fine. So Joe Biden was not fine after sundown, even on good days. But maybe Joe Scarborough was interacting with him when he was on a good day. So maybe we can extend some grace to people who had interactions with Joe Biden when he was at his best, and recognize that Biden had good days and bad days, and even though overall he was not fit for office, he was not at the same level of cognitive impairment every single day. Talk to you later.